Guys, how's it going? Ryan here from Midwest Metal Promotions. We made it to 2021, yay! Um, and so we're going to start doing interviews again. I want to do a monthly, just to give people time to, do their thing and get on a regular schedule. And that way, if I do, because before I did like 5 interviews in 1 month and then spread them out, and then information was bad, and there you go. Um, so we are starting with someone we all know, I think. Um, what can I say about this gentleman? He's a friend. He's an inspiration. He's a musician, a photographer, a promoter, a drone enthusiast, a motorcycle enthusiast, a podcaster, and now a tie-dyeing freaking fool, Mr. Greg Chilton. How are you today,
Hey,
sir?
good man, good. Audio's okay. You can hear it, everything.
Yeah, audio's good on your
Okay.
end.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
So what I like to do is, because you've interviewed me, so this is, turning tables.
If you could call it an interview, I guess.
Well, there were
We had
questions
fun.
involved, I guess. Yeah. So what I like to do is I want to start out with what I call your two firsts, and first of those firsts being, what was the first album you purchased with your own money?
The first album I purchased with my own money was Kiss Double Platinum.
Nice.
Yeah. All the rest of them were like 45s my mom had, as far as records go.
Right.
It was all like 45s, Simon and Garfunkel. I mean, just all kinds of different stuff. My mom was really into R&B.
Nice.
So
nice.
that was my thing. And then I found Kiss. I don't even remember. Well, actually, a neighbor of my grandmother has been a good friend of mine since I was like 5, and we started listening to Kiss together. And we would do like little concerts with our GI Joe guys.
Oh, nice.
We'd
nice.
like headbang to it, And his mom was really supportive with like with rock and roll. She just bought him a ton of records all the time. He had Bob Seger, and I mean just a ton of stuff that we'd have little impromptu concerts with our GI Joes.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because I consider you and me the same generation, and I think everybody from our generation at some point discovered Kiss. I mean, it was just inevitable. When I was, God, how old was I? 11, 12, something like that. I somehow inherited a bunch of Kiss records, and I had Destroyer. I believe I had Double Platinum. I had Dress to Kill, because I remember the cover, because the reverse side, the backside was the
Negative.
the negative, and I was like, whoa, that's well. It was Destroyer is the one I leapt to, but not for Beth. It was for God of Thunder. But yeah, I think everybody has gone through the Kiss path at one time or another. So
did you ever get a chance to see him?
I never got a chance to see him.
I had a chance to see him when I was young, and then I really didn't remember that show very much. But I was working at a place in St. Paul called Rockheads, downtown St. Paul on Wabasha, and they were playing down at the Civic Center, is what it was called then. And they came, their lighting guy and their sound guy came down to the shop that I was working at, and came in, and they were buying some smoking accessories, and we got to talking, and I noticed one of them had a embroidered Kiss shirt on. And I was like, hey, they're playing down the street. And he's like, yeah, I'm the light guy, and that's the sound guy. And I was like, oh, super cool, man. And they're like, can you help us out? And I was like, sure. Well, what are you thinking? And they picked this gigantic hookah pipe, and it was like their bus thing, we got to get rid of it anyway by the time we get to Canada. So we want to save money on it. I said, well, if you can get me some tickets and backstage passes, I'll get you a good deal. And he looks at me and he goes, are you serious? And I said, yeah. So I ran upstairs. I talked to my manager, and she goes, as long as 2 of those tickets are for me and my kid, we can do whatever you want.
Nice.
And so I hooked those guys up. They hooked us up with backstage passes and all that. But this is when they came back on their their makeup tour, back with their
okay,
makeup.
yeah.
And it was all of them. It was, Ace Frehley and Peter Criss on that
Mhm.
tour. So I was really stoked to see that shit,
Nice.
Yeah, so it was really cool. And we got to, I got to stand. So back in the day, my buddy that I went to that Kiss concert when we were kids, he said, he goes, "Do you remember Paul Stanley sliding across the stage with the Explorer type guitar with the glass, with the mirrors on it?" You know what I'm
Mhm.
talking about?
Mhm.
Okay, so I don't remember that. I remember seeing it in videos, in high school, you know what I mean, as you see
Yeah,
YouTube
yeah,
and
yeah.
whatnot. So we were I walked by the soundboard and the guy looks over and he sees me, he waves me over, and I'm like, I've never been, at this point, I'd never been like officially on a arena rock tour back by the soundboard. I just had never done that before. And
Right.
I mean, I worked for a lot of bands before, but never, a guy's like, "Come on over here." So we go up there and I shit you not, Paul Stanley slides across the crowd on a wire, lands on the platform right in front of me, dude, right in front of me, and plays Love Gun with that guitar, with that mirrored guitar right there. I was blown away. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
It was amazing. Yeah, super
Nice.
cool. So I got to see those guys a few times and I loved it, man.
Yeah, that's one of those questions. Like, if you could go back in history, I mean, I know you can see them now, and it's the same show, but it's not quite the same as it would have been in like 1976. You know,
Sure. Yeah.
but that's definitely. Though honestly, I'd probably want to see them like 74, like on their first tour when they were just really raw and hungry, and you know,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
and it's
That would have been a
funny
blast.
that you bring up like Bob Seger is one of the other records that they had, because Bob Seger opened for them at some point during the 70s.
See, and that could have been why my buddy had that stuff
That
at
could
that
be.
particular time too. That's awesome, man. Yeah, it was a trip. The Silver Bullet Band live album, I believe it was live, and we would listen to that all the time. I think I have that album somewhere.
Well, it's a
I
great
did
fucking
find.
album, man.
So I went to Electric Fetus one day, and I was just looking. I don't even remember what I was looking for, but I stumbled over towards the records, and I look up on the corner, and there's a original pressing of Love Gun up on the wall,
Hmm.
and I was like, "Holy shit!" I pulled it down, and the only thing that it doesn't have, I should run over and grab it quick. But the only thing that it doesn't have is the pop. They had a poppy thing that it came with the record. I don't even remember that as a kid because my buddy had all the Kiss
Hmm.
records.
Hmm.
So,
Huh.
but yeah,
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, Kiss is one of those groups that, especially, I mean, you think about the bands that opened for them, especially in the 70s. I mean, Rush, Judas Priest opening for Kiss. Can you imagine that? I mean,
that would have been
Jesus.
sweet. Yeah, that would have been amazing. I got a chance to see Priest a couple times too. I'm really happy that I got to see them. I got to see them on what was it? The fucking Painkiller album,
Oh, nice. Nice.
and that was unbelievable. God, that was unbelievable. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, I kind of fell out of love with Kiss because of Gene Simmons being such a different type of character. You know what I mean?
Good way to put it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We all know what you mean. We all know what you mean.
I have a lot of friends that are Kiss fans too, and they still bum out that I'm like, fuck Gene Simmons, I can swear, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay. All right.
The one thing I will say about Gene is that he never hid that fact about himself. Like, he
True.
was always open
True.
about it. And
Yeah,
that
yeah.
gives me a little bit of respect for him. Like, if it was really nice, but actually an asshole, you would hate him more, but
Yeah.
he's an asshole.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of respect that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, the other first that I have, and maybe you've answered this already, what was the first concert that you wanted to go to? Not you got dragged to or whatever, but the first one you said, no, I want to go there.
The first concert that I can honestly remember that I wanted to go to was Slayer, Motorhead, and Overkill at First Avenue. I started moving towards that type of music,
Mm-hmm.
I think Metallica, Motley Crue, you know, Bon Jovi, all that hair shit. You know
Oh
what I
yeah,
mean?
we all went
All of it.
down that path too.
People, people will tell you that they never did, or yeah, fuck those bands, but that
Please.
it was like, that was MTV back when we were kids. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
MTV was where we found a lot of that stuff.
yeah.
So I would say that Slayer show, because my friends, my best friend in high school, his older brothers would turn us on to all of this music. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like Sepultura was one of the bands that they turned us on to right away. DRI, Nuclear Assault,
Hmm.
um, Sodom, uh, Fuck Destruction, Motorhead, Overkill, obviously Slayer. I mean, so much Slayer. There was just, I've seen Slayer a million times. You know, Death
Hmm.
Angel, Forbidden. That's how I fell in love with Forbidden. But anyway, yeah, that Slayer show, probably because I was ready for it. You know what I mean? It
Hmm.
was the first time that I'd ever been to a show like that at that venue. Now, what's funny is I lived in Minneapolis when I was a kid, when I was really young, but
Hmm.
my mom's boyfriend worked at Circus right down on Hennepin, and there none of that stuff is there anymore. But there used to be a ton of different bars, Moby Dick's,
Oh
the
yeah, oh
Red's
yeah.
Roost, like all these old bars. Well, there used to be Circus. Circus was an arcade wherever, and Pops was down the road by.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I remember Pops. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
So we used to take the bus from Oliver area, Newton. So we lived on Newton. So my friends and I would jump on the bus. We'd take it downtown. And I'm talking, dude, we were maybe 10, 11 years old, and we're
Hmm.
jumping on a bus going downtown by ourselves. I would never imagine to have my kid going downtown Minneapolis. But anyway, I had passed First Avenue when it was just jumping as a kid, and I was just like, holy shit, what's coming out of there? It was like
Hmm.
demons, you know what I mean? And so when I started getting into that and into heavier stuff, I was like, shit, man, Slayer's coming to town, and it was South of Heaven uh, tour.
Hmm.
The first time that I had seen Motorhead, and here's the kicker. So my brother, my buddy's brother, I just call them my brothers because we've known each other. I mean, if you look behind me, let me turn the camera. So right there behind me is his dad.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
That's a
yeah, yeah.
picture of his dad, because that's the guy that, I lived with them. They're basically family to me.
Hmm.
And we took some acid. It was like my very first time taking LSD.
Hmm.
And I took LSD. I mean, we dosed out, we jumped in this truck, we drove downtown, and now it's like, I'm a high school kid now, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like I'm fucking out here with these crazy people, dude. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
his brothers were out of hand. They were just crazy brawlers. That it was insane to be around these guys. And I know if you've ever been to any big shows, you'd seen them around. I guarantee it. From the 80s till today, these guys go to the heaviest shows out there. You know what I mean? And they're at every show. There used to be 3 of them, but there's only 2 of them left now. But we get to this show, dude, and we're standing in line, and I'm standing there freezing, and all of a sudden it's starting to creep up my neck. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And we
Hmm.
get into First Avenue, and when you walk in up to the right, you kind of come around, and there was that glass. It was like those old school square glass cube looking
Oh
things. You
yeah,
can't
yeah,
really see through.
yeah,
That
yeah.
was the wall. You remember that when it was the wall like
Oh
that?
yeah, oh yeah.
And then the bar was just right in front of that. Well, we went back there. Now the soundboard, if you remember, I'm sure you've been to a million First Avenue shows, but the soundboard's always right in the front of those couple stairs right there
Yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
the dance floor. Okay, so the soundboard was moved all the way back up on the deck, backed up to the bar. So
Hmm.
we were just on the other side of the bar, dead center, watching this whole show. And Lemmy came out. We got there, and Motorhead, we saw probably 4 songs of Motorhead, and then they were done. Or Overkill, I'm sorry. And then Motorhead came on, and this shit kicked in, dude. And I thought Lemmy was 72 feet tall, dude. And I was, that far back in the club, he just looked like Godzilla. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah, yeah.
So we walked down the side to go meet him, and he's tiny. You know what I mean? So it was like the reverse of like a camera angle. You know what I'm saying? Like if you look down the lens one way, you look super far away, but then when you turn it around, it's like the binoculars. You're just right up on top of somebody like that. That's what it looked like. I was looking at him with the binoculars, you know, on LSD and fucking yeah. Slayer was amazing. That was the show. That was the one that set me in motion, man. I mean, beyond that, I didn't want to listen to. I mean, R&B and rap and all that stuff that I was listening to at the time just kind of moved aside, and that was my focus, was to find the coolest, heaviest metal I could find out there. You know what I mean? Like any of those bands, I wanted to have their records and I wanted to go to them shows. But I would say Slayer was the one that started it all for me.
Nice. Yeah, I was kind of a latecomer, I guess. Like the first show, okay, technically the first show, because I was thinking about this, that I actually wanted to go to was the Monkees 20th anniversary tour at State Fair. And then a couple years after that, a friend of mine got tickets to go see Cinderella on the Long Cold Winter Tour.
Yeah.
With Bullet Boys and Winger out at the old Civic Center, pre Mall of America. Or the Met Center. That's what
Met Center.
Met Center. So I consider that my first like big like arena show. And I've just been to, I mean, I didn't go to, there's a period of about 4 years where I went to a bunch of shows. And we'll talk about this in a little bit. I didn't go to any, I wasn't really aware of like the local scene when I was 20, 21, 22. So I went to, all the national shows. I went to a couple of Lollapaloozas. I saw the Clash of the Titans tour in Forest Lake.
Lucky bastard. You are so lucky that you saw that, because that's the first time Allison Chains was here, and I would have heard about them almost a year to 2 years before they really blew up on Facelift. That did you get to see Allison Chains, or do you remember them?
We got there for probably their last maybe 3 songs.
Oh,
I remember them. They closed with Man in the Box, and everybody went apeshit. That's what I remember. But I'll tell you about that show real quick. So I think Slayer went on first, and they killed it because they always do. The only thing I remember, because it was outdoors and it was windy, and Dave Lombardo had a gong behind him that they had to take down because the wind kept almost knocking it over. But they killed it. Anthrax came on next, and something about the wireless mics that they were using and something, so their mics kept cutting out because they were running around on stage. Joey was. And then by the time Megadeth came on, Dave's voice was just shot. So impressive lineup and should have been a great show. And then the only 2 other times I saw Allison Chains were at Lollapalooza 92, 93, 92.
On dirt, right?
No, it might have been on dirt.
That was dirt.
And I honestly don't remember their set at Lollapalooza.
Really?
Which is sad, because I did see them I saw them at First Ave though.
Oh yeah.
In 93. And I could tell they started out with Damn That River, and I could tell Lane's voice was shot. Yeah. So that was disappointing. But that was the only times I saw Allison Chains, unfortunately.
Yeah. So Clash of the Titans was that was one that I missed, man. I was in Texas, and then I came back and we went to the Milwaukee Metal Fest. That I believe it was right around that time.
Yeah, I mean, so I haven't been to, like, I've never seen Priest, I've never seen Maiden, I've never seen Kiss, I've seen Rush twice. I've seen
Rush once.
But like a lot of the big bands, like, I've never seen. And again, we can talk about this because of COVID and the way the industry is now. I'm looking at it, to jump subjects, I'm looking at it as a nice kind of shot in the arm, because I think pre-COVID, the big business concert people, it was getting out of hand.
Oh yeah, for
with
sure.
ticket prices, with merch prices, with management and all that stuff. It was just getting ridiculous. So I think this might be a nice kind of like shot in the arm of like, oh, maybe we should, hopefully, I don't know.
Oh, you mean oh yeah, like $100 tickets and craziness like that?
$100 nosebleed seats. I mean, you did not pay $100 for nosebleed seats. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's
not
what that.
Not when we were young, anyways. That's for sure.
God. I saw Metallica on the Black Album tour, the evening with, and I think those tickets, which I had relatively good seats, I think those were like $30, maybe $35 for like 4 hours of Metallica. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope that something changes, man. I hope that we can actually go back. I just can't even imagine. Man, I have absolutely no projection on how this can all go back to normal. Even, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
we're doing a video call. I mean, I could have came by and whatnot, but it's still just kind of one of them things that's like, it's all good, you know. I mean, I'm worried that it's not going to go back the way we want it to. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I've been telling
capacities and things.
Yeah, I mean, it'll never be normal again. Like, I think that's a given. That's just something people have to accept. But we can, try to make it as normal as we can.
Sure.
And whether that, and I mean, with the vaccines now, who knows? But if that means, having to wear masks at every show, I can do that. If it means, a third capacity or whatever, it sucks, but at least something.
Yeah. Then those tickets better go back to when we were kids, when they're like $15. That's what I'm saying. You're still making money, Well,
and that's the thing. That's the thing. It's like there's so much. I mean, there is and there isn't. Once you get to that level, I mean, the money is just ridiculous.
Well,
it's getting to that level, and the only handful of bands that get to that level. Everybody else is in the middle, kind of scrambling.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you look at some of the big bands that were doing well, and now they're kind of, trying to scrape themselves back up again. You know what I mean? I'm hoping that, I hope things go back to somewhat normal. It'd be nice to see some people. It'd be nice to have some live music again. I mean, have you had a chance to see any of the stream shows that have been out, like the Clutch show or the Down show or any of those obituary shows or any of that?
Oh no, I haven't got any of those. I mean, I'm glad that they exist. I'm glad they're around. I'm glad these bands are doing something.
A lot of those videos now, Pat, since it's already happened or whatever, they're on YouTube. You can check them out. That's how I watched the Down. I totally forgot about it. A guy that I work with sent me a link to it, and then I was like, "Oh man, I missed it," and I didn't realize that they were replaying it. I didn't pay for it. I watched it on YouTube. Phenomenal show. The Clutch one as well. I watched a little bit of that one. I didn't see either of the three of the obituary shows, but I wanted to. Man, I just been trying to find old school funk shit lately. You know what I mean? Like I've been listening to so much more rap and old R&B. Like I found some Slave records. You ever heard of Slave?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Slide album. I don't know if that's what it's called. I got it on my. Hold on, let me see if I can find it here. I downloaded it the other day. I found this documentary on Google God damn it! What am I thinking? Yeah, the Prime, Amazon Prime.
Oh, Amazon, yeah.
Amazon Prime had a funk documentary that I watched the other day, and they brought up Slave, and I saw it and listened to it. Man, I love that old funk stuff. That's been my jam lately, man. And that new Prof album, the rapper from Minneapolis, Prof. I'm just a huge fan of that dude. I love that guy. What's really funny, okay? This is a trip. I love that dude's rhymes. I love how he flows. He's from our city. He's got a song called Minneapolis, right? I know like 5 people that have been in his videos, and I've never. I mean, I met him. My wife took a picture with him at one of his shows on New Year's.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Dude was cool as shit. So I've been doing this podcast, for 9 years, working on the 10th year. Well, I took 2 years off, so technically I'm working on my 8th year, right?
Yeah.
So, so he released a song called "Cousins" off of one of his last albums, and my cousins were in the fucking video. That's how weird that is. And I still haven't, like, I know people have done beats for him. I know people that are all connected to him and shit. I've never met him, and I want to interview him really bad, for the podcast.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But man, yeah, his music is amazing. That's what I've been vibing off of, that and Mark Rebele a lot. Weird fucking disco kind of, like, this guy is, he's a crazy man. He's got a sampler. He samples loops, and he uses little shakers and claps his hands and shit, and makes the beats on his keyboard and then sings over them. It's just been this thing for me. I don't know why.
Wow. Huh.
I think it's COVID brain, bro.
It probably is. It probably is. When in doubt, just blame COVID.
Yeah.
Just
everything's. Yeah. I think that's. Did you get sick yet? Did you get sick?
No, luckily. Knock on wood. And I've been working and out there this whole entire time. So I didn't get furloughed or anything. So yeah. And I've avoided it somehow. So luckily
I got some sort of weird sickness right when the shit happened in April. Mm-hmm. My wife got a fever out of the blue. And, like, I kid you not, a week before that, my job had posted something saying, "Hey, if you feel any symptoms, stay home. We'll figure whatever out. We got to see who's been subjected to it, whatnot." So I was home the first 2 weeks when in April, and I thought we might have had it. We didn't have any respiratory things, but we had fevers and that type of shit.
Yeah.
And then, it was supposed to be like 14 days quarantine. So then we stayed away for, I want to say, we were already hiding out anyway. We weren't going anywhere. Honestly, we weren't going anywhere other than to dinner. And that was about it, But then, I've been working this whole time too. And I bought my motorcycle. I went riding and I thought I had allergies. I wore a mask. I tried to stay away from people. I mean, I was outside most of the time. If I went into a bar, it was to go to the bathroom and to leave, because we went to, Wisconsin a bunch, but it was hot over there too. I just started feeling kind of down. And then 16 days later, man, I went and stood in line at the convention center and got a test there. And 16 days miserable. I was horrible. And I know multiple people that have had it that like, it didn't affect them at all. Like 4 days, 3-4 days, and they were fine. Where me, 16 days, man, I was miserable. I was just fatigued. And like day 9, I had some breathing issues, man. And I coughed so hard, like day 7. So like day 9, you're supposed to be turning. That's what they kept my safety guy at work was like, "Oh, you're about to turn the corner," or whatever. And I had a mild fever. I was probably 101 tops. And then aches, fatigue, fucking everywhere that I'd ever broken anything, where my knuckles and my jaw and my knees and shit like that, they hurt. And they still, and I mean, the fatigue is real, bro. Like after weeks after, I'd be at work just dogging it all day, man. This just like, you just can't get your, stamina back. And now, I mean, the state of Minnesota called me and said, "You got 3 months. Tick tock." I'm like a month and a half now. And then I'm more panicked. You know what I'm saying? Because you're seeing all these other strains and all this other shit. I would love to be able to say that those vaccines and shit work, but you see all this people popping up and, people getting sick and Bell's palsy and people dying from it. And I mean, they say it's normal for vaccines and shit like that, apparently, but dude, you don't know what's going to happen. I would love to go back to shows. I would love to be able to see my friends and do more in-person stuff. I did a podcast video thing on Facebook on Friday with Chris Stark in here, and we've seen each other a few times, and he never got sick, and we've been doing good, staying in. My wife works from home. My daughter goes to school from home, and I'm still out there, probably like you too, man. You gotta do the grind. But man, I've been super fortunate with the tie-dye thing, kind of
Yeah, yeah,
supplementing and
absolutely, absolutely, man.
helping, you know.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I have to order a shirt from you at some point. So,
Well, yeah, let me know if there's anything that you see, and if anybody listening to this, if you see Ritual Stitches is where it's at. It's on Facebook, Ritual Stitches, and it's my embroidery stuff is kind of taken a back. I mean, everything's really taken a back seat, other than trying to get back into podcasting and doing this stuff again. I've just been tie dyeing like a motherfucker.
yeah,
So if you see if there's any designs that you like and you want to change the color patterns up or whatever, let me know, because I can do custom stuff. Right now I have small to 4X t-shirts. I don't have any XLTs at the moment, but I can order some. I have done a couple hooded sweatshirts. I'm wearing one of my rejects. It's not one. It's just because of the material. When I bought it, I didn't realize it had as much polyester as it did, and I made one other one, and it looked just fine. I hadn't been tie dyeing for very long before I did those ones, so I was like, this one I did like last week, and it still looked fucked up. So I was like, well, that'll put you back in your seat. Like, yeah, you think you're scared, dude? I've been doing this shit 4 months.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Going on 5 months, and I've been super lucky, man. I have so many cool people in my life that are, that someone said on Facebook, shows are going to come back and it's going to look like Woodstock because I'm selling so many tie-dyes to everybody. But
I hope so, man.
It's funny, dude, because there are a lot of people who enjoy them. I didn't think, I figured I get a box of shirts and I kind of monkey around with it and throw them up there. If anybody wants to, purchase one, they could, whenever. But 80 something pieces in 4 months.
That's impressive, man.
It blows me away because it's it's a couple a day. It's a couple a day, and it's keeping me really busy. I'm happy about that. I'm home with my family. Like I've got my embroidery stuff here, and that's the shit that I need to get back to, but also the podcast and doing that. And yeah, I'm home with my family, and I'm right there doing t-shirts, and my wife loves it. She likes the fact that I'm home.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Safety first and all that.
Yeah.
So let's go back a little bit, because like the first band I joined was in '95, a band called Stupid Jerk out of Montemita. And
I'm from over that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that whole area. And we got to the point where we're doing all the new band nights at the Fine Line, Caboose, and Entry and all those. So at that point, I kind of realized there were other bands in the scene, and we're kind of playing with them. Again, didn't start going to shows, and then kind of re-entered the scene 2014, 2015. So it was a good 10-year gap. So I missed all the shit, including like you. I mean, the sub-level stuff, that was early 2000s, mid 2000s, something like that.
Sub-level was formed right around 97.
Okay.
98, 97, 98. Basically, I was working with some fellas with the Necromus guys, from right around 89 to 95. And then we broke up around 95, late 95. And then I want to say, 2 years, I went on tour with a band called Tribe of Millions. I did a tour with those guys.
Yeah, we've talked about Tribe of Millions, yeah.
Yeah. and kind of was just out of metal altogether, you know what I mean? Like I didn't stay focused on music. I really, with the whole Necromus thing, man, it was dumb luck that I jumped into that band, I stumbled on some young cats that were playing, and then I kind of just went on a tangent there. Anyway, yeah, 98, 97, 98 was Sublevel. Yeah.
So what was the scene back then? I mean, what was the scene
With
turn
Sublevel.
of the century? Just in I mean, did you guys play out, obviously? And I'm assuming, like Station 4 and all the usual haunts, but
Yeah, that was right. That we were above in the studios at Station 4. That was our home base pretty much with Sublevel. We like I said, I wasn't really looking for a band, and I stumbled on the guitar player from Sublevel.
okay.
We started jamming. He knew a drummer that I knew. We got together, and it was like it had multiple different lineup changes, and it was really weird. It went really, really fast, and it was like every guy that switched out, we'd get another guy, it'd be better. We'd get another guy, it'd be better, and it was just steadily climbing with the people we were jamming with. Then it was like, we could always play Ryan's. We could always play, I was still really connected with the scene. I was really connected as far as like venues and promoters and shit like that, because I was doing security and setups for many clubs in town.
Oh, okay.
I got hooked up with that shit. So I was kind of connected all the way around with people. I really wasn't talking to Don Decker, but he was in that same building when we started jamming as Sublevel. And at that time, we weren't friends at that time. I went to his house to try to kill him, and he put me in jail. So that was
and there you go.
Yeah, well, that was how we had a falling out, because I was working with one of the major, to me, he was the major metal promoter in town. He was like all underground stuff and had booked so many shows at that time. So I wasn't really talking to him, but I was still connected through all these other people. Right. Sublevel started playing, and it built. It just kept building. There were more people around the scene. American Head Charge was doing really, really big at the time. Straight Jacket popped up right around that time. And then all of the other bands, Align was one that we played with a lot. Sunset Black was one. Two Ton Crutch was one. Smiling Liar was a band. Skywind was a band. The scene was massive. It was massive, and there was a lot of talented bands at that particular time. I mean, a ton. Head Charge was moving so fast. They were like the hyperspeed of an analogy for that band. They were the band that like started, popped up, and we were already hustling right around the time they were too. So it was one of those things that there were so many of us, like, not really competing, but we were all. It was like a friend. It was a good scene. There wasn't a lot of backstabbing going on that I encountered, but again, it could have just been the circles that I was running in. You know what I mean?
Could have been.
Nuisance was one of those bands too. Nuisance is still around now. They were Nuisance Crew back then. I mean, there were a lot of bands around. The scene was phenomenal. You could get in anywhere. 7th Street Entry. I mean, at least I could. Not to brag or any shit like that. But it was like it was just the people that we were around. You know what I mean? Like we were all tight. 93X was one of the was a station that supported local bands back then, and I got no beef with them. They're still a rock station in town, and we're lucky to have one at least. But
True.
Their promotions people, Wendy Ellis, Neil Hins, Dougie, all the DJs back then. Ton Mastery was a big help. Weasel and Patrick and Pablo, and I mean, all of those guys were very supportive of the people around them, the bands around them. I mean, they gave you opportunities to play huge shows, and then they would do the Battle of the Bands to try to get on X Fest. I mean, it was a big thing, man. Right around 2000 when we won the Battle of the Bands, it was like it was amazing, because Head Charge was signed by then. They were out on the road. They were touring with what I did. Fucking Fear Factory, and I think they were in System of a Down and shit. You know what I mean? These were our hometown boys, and they're out there, killing it on the road. And there was a lot of talk of people saying Sublevel or Nuisance or Sound and Fury, which they ended up signing a small record deal for a little while, like a working deal. And then, there were a handful of us that there talks about us getting signed and being, one of the next bands out there. And we played a ton of, we probably played 4 or 5 label showcases. I mean, I was on the phone with Monty Connor from Roadrunner, shortly after Slipknot got signed. And, Danny Nizal was a guy who works with, I believe, Dolly Parton right now. But he was a security guy for Asia back in the day at the Civic Center and the Met Center and shit like that. He had been around forever. He ended up being Slipknot's manager. You know what I mean? Like he went, he was a hometown boy too. So it was like, we had connections through these people. I mean, Wendy Ellis, when Limp Bizkit got signed, their people, when he was running Interscope, I believe it was one of those labels. I believe it was Interscope. But he was sending around to different radio stations in the United States to find out what local bands were doing well, because he wanted to do showcases to start signing people, Sublevel, Mikey Doling from Snot sat down or gave our stuff to Happy Walters and a few other people that were out there. I mean, we got super lucky back then. We were super lucky. We were in the right spot at the right time. It seemed like every time. It was the luck. And honestly, dude, I think it was the partying that was going on. We were at every party. We're at every party. We partied with all the, I mean, I was in a room hanging out with Chad from Hell Yeah and, Mudvayne. I'm sitting in a corner with him having one-to-ones, talking to Paul Gray and, and Mick. And I mean, there's just been, the guys from Machine Head. I mean, all of them dudes throughout the years, I had met them. Overkill, I had met, the Bullet Boys, Cinderella. I mean, all these bands that I had met, Forbidden, Testament, so many. You start to learn how to like jive around with all these people, man, and all of a sudden you're getting lucky breaks, really. And fortunately and unfortunately, right? We didn't get signed. I say fortunately because we actually really busted our ass, but we were all just a mess, dude. You know what I mean? We were absolute. We were out of hand at the time, and it was like make or break. You hear so many stories of like the casualties of people having addiction and and problems, you know what I mean, and partying so much. It's a whirlwind. There's like so much stuff that happened back then, dude, that I have like just buzzed out memories because of partying so much with everybody, you know what I mean. It's
no. So basically what you're saying is if you would have got signed, there's a good chance you wouldn't be sitting here right now.
That's where I was going with it.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad back then, and I mean, I remember sitting down with, we played our set at X Fest in 2000, and the guys from Three Doors Down, and they were cranking it out right at that particular time, and everybody makes fun of that band or whatnot, that heavy band people, heavy fans make fun of that band is what I meant to say. So when the singer comes up to you and starts talking to you and like introduces you to record label people because they're in the crowd, they're like, hey man, where are you from and who are you signed to? And I'm like, nobody, man, we're from St. Paul. Like we're right over the river. What I mean? Like we're right there. And he's like, you need to come with me, man. I want to get you a deal. And you hear stories about that, you know what I mean? Like, hey dude, we're going to help you out. Like that happened with the radio station too. They would throw us things, like, here, dude, come play this record label people showcase. There's 4 guys sitting there going, play another one. We want to hear what that one. Do you have anything that has more sing stuff to it? More catchy hook to it, We're heavy. We just wanted to be heavy. That's what Sublevel was groovy. People really liked it. It was catchy and it was just a little too heavy. That's what they said. And when I talked to Ross Robinson, and I talked to Monty Connor, they were like, we want to hear more of this out of you, more marketability. That's what they wanted. I mean, Monty Connor is a guy who was the head A&R for Roadrunner, forever. like the 80s, from the 80s. He was signing all of the great thrash bands, you know, for that label.
Yeah.
But they didn't go multi-platinum until they signed Slipknot. You know what I'm saying? So
Oh, I
it
suppose
was
not.
like,
No.
yeah, they were
Shit.
the first band for them to go multi-platinum. And then since then, it's like, I think Nickelback and like all these other bands that
Whoa,
were
yeah,
signed to that
yeah,
label, right?
yeah.
So talking to those guys, that was their major qualm with the album that took us 4 years to make. The one, you know,
Wow.
our first album took forever to make, and that was why that we went through so many lineup changes. It was like the rocket, you know what I mean? Like you didn't know whether or not the rocket was going to explode or just, you know, it burned to pieces, because that's the way it was. It just happened. Everything happened super fast. It was like we were preparing for shows instead of writing material, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like it took us 4 years to record the album because we couldn't find a studio that we wanted. We wanted to use. Dude, it was ridiculous. And we were making thousands of dollars to play shows. That's the funny thing is a local band playing their own music, you know, cover bands make that type of money, but you know, when you're playing your own stuff, never, dude. You're just you're not making that type of money. And we were able to get, you know, $1,000 a show, you know, which was crazy to me because I was playing in a death metal band years before that for nothing, for peanuts, for beer, for pizza, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
We just wanted to play, and then all of a sudden, you know, I was making a little bit of money, and we put it into merch and made a little bit more money. And I mean, I learned a ton through the whole years, man, with playing in bands and doing all that stuff. I learned so much. But yeah, I mean, back then, dude, it was really fun. It was a blast. It was for me, for my personal experience, man, with Sublevel and the stuff that was going on from 97 to 2002 or, you know, 2002, early 2003. I mean, it was a good experience, man. It was fun. We did a lot of great stuff. We had a lot of great opportunities, and we had a lot of people show up at our shows, and, you know, we didn't capitalize on it. It was like the young musician thing that had no direction. There were people in the music scene, man, that had people that wanted to look out for them. We were like that band nobody wanted to really help. I mean, it's funny I say that people did help us out by giving us things, but we had like one handler, dude, and like a couple people that were, you know, right at the end of Sublevel, we moved with people that Head Charge and Blackfoot Diesel and, you know, these guys, like they were running with these people were like, hey man, come over here. Let's try to get you some more stuff. And by that time we're ready to kill each other. You know what I mean? So it was like, dude, we spent a bunch of money on this album, and my bass player got stuck with a huge bill, and a lot of CDs never got sold. But dude, people still want them. They want to know where they can get a Sublevel CD. I mean, there'll be, you know, concerts are popping up every couple years that people like. Dude, I've got a fucking duffel bag with little Super 8 cassette tapes. I got a bunch of them. I don't know where they are, but I got a bunch of them, and they're all from shows that we had played. You know, funny stories. I always thought that Sublevel was doing fantastic. We played X-Fest 2 years in a row. We played in front of all these fucking people, and the first year was the most humbling experience that I ever had playing music at all. It was we played the first year. We're in front of all these people, man. People were just all over us, signing autographs and yucking it up, and, you know, we played at Cabs in St. Paul. Was a little dive bar on the east side of St. Paul. There were 50 people in that place, dude, and it was the most like punch you in the face type of, you know, experience. It was so like, damn it.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool, man. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that if you remember New Edition, they had because I've seen their behind the music, they had a very similar thing where their first tour, they went out and it was great and everything out. And then, you know, bus dropping them off in front of their homes in the projects, and they just went along their little way. It's kind of like, oh, I guess we're back to reality now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So after Sublevel dissolved, Where did we go from there?
Back to my original band. Necromus was the first band that, well, there were multiple bands before that. I mean, there's one that my first recording that I'd ever done was with a band called Lobotomy. It was basically the guys from, it was all thrashy type stuff. I hope Brian Owens doesn't hear this conversation, because Brian Owens will probably send you some of my horrible first music. if you go on one of the episodes I did with Brian Owens, he actually played one of my very first songs that we had ever recorded. It was horrible. I sat there just embarrassed that I even, but that was the beginning of it. And then we went to Necromus, and it was a death metal band, and that's what it was. I was enthralled in that type of music, man. I loved it, and something happened. I have no idea what happened with that band. It just, we were kids, and we did some cool stuff, and we played. I told people the last time that I played First Avenue for the Chad Hanks benefit, I had played First Avenue in 4 times in my life, when I was in my teens, my 20s, my 30s, and then that last one was in my 40s. So hopefully I don't want to break the streak. So maybe I'll do something in my 50s. I'll just be able to do a cameo with some band, just to keep the streak going.
Exactly, exactly, man.
Yeah, but that was the first. Necromus was the first band that I'd ever played. I take that back. Lobotomy, I did play at First Avenue with Lobotomy, and then I played with Necromus in First Avenue as well. And that was, I went back to that band. I went back to Necromus. We were still all friends and still talked. We still talk to this day. I still talk to a majority of everybody that I still jammed with. There's like a handful of dudes that I don't talk to, or keep track on their bands. And, man, yeah, they wanted to jam. I went back. We released an album, couple EPs, released an album, and then dropped another EP, and then we called it quits on that one too. We just Necromus was my thing, man. It's old death metal. You can still find it out there. There was a guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but he contacted me a couple months back saying that he wanted to get the demo tapes so he could make a record of the old Necromus stuff, that he had a record press, that he was pressing records of his favorite old death metal bands. He would press them on records. And I know that Al Town got one from his old band Catharsis. And that was the first time that Al Town and I met, was through Catharsis. We played in the entry together with Necromus. Yeah. So we've been playing together for years and years and years, 30 years at least, man, So, yeah, that was it. I went to Necromus. We released a couple albums early. We released 2 demos early. I think the last one was 94. And then we came back in 2003 with our original guitar players, too. So it was like the main creator was Jay Nodebart, who plays in Grand Demise right now.
Okay.
He's the leader of that band, and really was the leader of Necromus as well. He was the guy's one of those people that you jam with, and he can create a whole thing because he knows how. He's the first guy that I'd ever jammed with that could mold himself to what you do. You know what I mean? Like,
gotcha.
He remembers what he remembers and hears what he thinks you're going to do. He plays it that way. So when you come and you hear it, you're like, oh, okay. And then he'll look at you and go, well, I kind of heard you do this, or I kind of heard you do that, or, this is where I heard you come in, or this is, and Dan Larrick is also in Grand Demise. Those guys, basically, that's what happened with Necromus at the tail end of it before Outside the Murder, was they were going a different direction, the more black metal style. And I had just had my kid. So that'd be 14 years ago. So I had just had my daughter, and I was in and out. I was really not there a lot. And they were working on new material, and I would write some stuff to it, and it just wasn't fitting for those guys. They wanted to hear a different sound. And I told them, I wanted to play the stuff that they were doing because it was amazing, but I just wasn't the singer for that stuff. And so they started, doing it. It was the bass player Aaron Davis at the time, and then another Aaron that they were kind of all hanging out with. We practiced in Aaron's place. Tony Olson, and that's how Grand Demise started. Is basically we just kind of they parted ways with me, and
Gotcha.
it was the most heartbreaking thing ever, man. It was so horrible for me because we started that band. We came up with the name Necromus, and that's why they changed the name to Grand Demise, is because it was like just the end of it. That was it. It was like when we got back together in 2003, or I think it was it had to have been 2002 or 3, somewhere in there. When we got back together, we played, and it was like, what happened? Why did we break up? That's how it was. Like, what in the fuck happened to this? Because this was amazing, and it was amazing from, putting the needle on the record, man. It was like, it just jived. Everyone knew what everybody was going to do, and it felt so good. But it was like, I was coming off this sub-level nonsense, man, like thinking I was way cooler than I really was, I was coming off of that bullshit into a band that was, virtually an underground band. We played a lot of cool shows with Necromus, man. We toured with that band, and we met a lot of cool people and did a lot of cool shit with that band too. Yeah, that was, those are my boys, man. I even contacted them at the beginning of the pandemic because I had stopped playing with Outside the Murder, and contacted them, and what was like, we should write another album, man. Just even if it's a studio thing, we should do it. And they were game. We just didn't have a drummer at the time. And I don't know if it was going to be a Necromus moniker or anything, or under that hat, but we talked about it. It never materialized. And then, there's been talks of doing some other stuff, and I would really love to jam again, man, but it's got to be the right thing, and it's got to be the right people, and it's got to be the right time, because I've been writing a little bit here and there, which with the Outside the Mirror stuff, we had 5 songs at the tail end of that we were gonna do, but that's it.
Exactly. So how does a singer with such highs and lows fall into podcasting? How the hell did that happen?
I've been listening. I drive for a living, so I'm like, I've got all these hobbies and all this shit that I do, and I drive for a living, so I was always listening. I was on the road all the time, so I was tired of the radio stations, So then I started listening to podcasts, and I started listening to Joe Rogan and Ari Shaffir, basically a bunch of comedian podcasts, and catching a couple metal ones here and there, and I just really wanted to try it. And Jordan Swanson was in school at the time, and he needed to do a project, something similar to that, for recording and whatnot, and I had all of the gear, pretty much, the cheap microphones and some computers that I had for my embroidery stuff, and just a ton of music. So I was like, how can we do this? So I researched it, I kind of figured it out, and we started with 3 hours out of the gate. I apologize for the long-winded explanations and like the half stories here and there. It's kind of like I get flowing, and I just go and I go and I go, and that's basically what it was, man. Is that I just gab, I'm on one. I'm always been a talkative person, and I said, fuck it, man. Why not? I know enough metalheads around the town, and I've been connected with a lot of different types of people. I'm open to anything, man. I'm a good guy. I try to be friends with as many people as I can. You never know.
Of course. Yeah.
You never know who you can help, and that's really, I'll help anybody as long as they don't do me wrong. And you know what I mean? Here, check this out. So basically what it is it's like this with the NYDM, with the podcast, with things like that. All of the things that I had done musically in this town, in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and outside of this place, I've been given so many things and so many opportunities and so much cool shit that, and then let me back up. Earl Root,
Mm.
you know,
Mhm.
had the root of all evil. Now that guy, you could call him on the phone. If you're his friend and you were ready to drop a release, do anything like that, you could call him on the phone. You could call, you know, back in the day, you could call 93X. I could get on a line with somebody and get promotion out there if I wanted to, you know? And that was the thing. They were gifts. You know, you listen to that radio station, you listen to the root of all evil, and Earl Root gave everything to people. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
Mhm.
I learned that from him, man. And when I started this podcast, that's what I wanted to do, is I wanted to give it back. Instead of taking all the time, I wanted to give it back, man. You know, like every band that has ever been on my podcast, anybody that's ever been on my podcast, I want them to shine. Has nothing to do with me. You know, the podcast is a hobby that I do, that I have and I love. And I, you know, if I could ever make money doing it, I definitely would. I got into it just stumbling into it.
Mhm.
But it was to give back to everybody else, because there's so many avenues that other people just don't know about, man. You don't have a, you know, some people just don't know. So you give them the opportunity to explain who they are, where they come from. Somebody might hear it and give them a chance. You know what I mean? That's really what it's about. So just to help. That's how the podcast. It makes me feel good, man, to
Yeah.
help people out. You know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And
I think you and I are very similar that way, in the fact that, you know, even though,
and the fact that we're both absolutely gorgeous human beings. That
well,
just, you know,
that goes without saying.
that's, yeah, I'm just saying.
And but it's like, you know, you're like 30 years in the scene and my like 6 years in the scene, basically same result.
Yeah.
I mean, the scene is, even though I'm sure it has changed a lot, you know,
Oh, it has.
in the
Yeah.
last, and we can talk about that, because I know you have feelings about that. But it does embrace you. Like if you give it this much, it gives you back this much. It just totally embraces you. You know.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. It has changed. It hasn't always been like that, you know.
Mhm.
And you kind of got to make. I think there's you know, there's been a handful of people that have had some influence in this town too, you know, that show respect to each other, and it trickles out to other people. And you know, and you know as well as I do, if something happens bad in this scene, you know, you get called out for it. You know, people don't want anything to do with the nonsense, the racism and the sexism and the bullshit that goes on, you know, in the music scene. It's unfortunate that it has to get so ugly sometimes. And that's a lot of why I kind of stayed away from podcasting for 2 years, man, is because it just got so ugly, man. There's just so much negative space, man. So much negative stuff going on in the scene, in, you know, the political environment. You know, I'm not even an adult, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm a kid in an old guy's body. That's basically what it is. And you know, like I just don't discuss any of that nonsense. And it seeing all the people at odds with each other in the last few years, it has been absolutely difficult to keep a solid, positive mind. You know what I mean? So. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of things have gotten very difficult in the last, let's say, 4 years.
Yeah. I agree.
But I mean, yeah, it's. I don't know. I mean, I still love the scene, and you know, as soon as we come back, obviously, I'll be right back out there, and you know, supporting when I can and all that. But yeah, it's a very good thing, and it's a interesting thing. Yeah, I lost myself there. I don't know.
No, that's okay. I understand. It's a lot to think about, because it's, you know what I mean? Like, you know, you want to be a good representation of the music scene, especially, you know, doing interviews and doing part podcasts and talking to people. And now it's having a conversation with someone, man. I mean, I guess the goal of my podcast was like to bring people to a point where, you know, you see them in, their band play or whatnot, you get to talk to them for 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't get to really know where they came from and unless you really make the effort, like if you have studios next to each other, you're going to run into each other a little more, I mean, the music scene, you get to know people really well, but at the same time, sitting down at the podcast and actually opening a whole new conversation for people. And then the next time they see them and they see them on the podcast or on your interviews, they'll bring up things and talk to each other, and it opens communications, I feel. But with this whole nonsense going on, man, I mean, COVID stuff and, the political bullshit and everything in the music scene, I just couldn't do it, dude. I was like, fuck this, man. I couldn't get the vibe, man. The negativity was just too strong, man. I was just trying to fight it off.
Yeah, exactly, man. And I mean, and again, hopefully, now that we've had a turning of the season, as it will, hopefully a lot of that. I mean, I don't think it'll go away, but hopefully it'll kind of.
I feel you with the shot in the arm type of thing. I think that, maybe if things do kind of slowly start going back to normal, people will maybe start treating people better, because you're being forced to not see them, forced to not be around them, forced to like take precautions that you normally wouldn't, that fear, that fucking, that anxiety of not being, you can't hug nobody. You can't give them a handshake. You can't give them a high five. Chris Stark and I were talking about that on Friday. Like, that's tough, man. You can't even high five nobody. You have a couple drinks and you want to hug people and like, you're happy to see them and shit. You can't even do that. So it's like,
yeah, I was just going to say
I think, with what you said about having a shot to the arm, I hope that's what happens like that too. You know what I mean? That people realize that you take all of this for granted, man, that you, that greedy ticket people are capitalizing on the poor people who are going to be more fucking poor because of this COVID shit and not being able to work and not being, what are you going to give me $600? What the hell is that going to do for me, man? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Okay. But yeah, that's what I'm hoping too, man. Ryan, honestly, that the shot in the arm goes to just the, everybody's attitude towards each other, man. Like I hope they just wake the fuck up and figure it out,
One big reset. That's all I want.
Either that or we gotta have a gym where we can have a fight club, so like anybody gets fucking karate chop them in the head real quick.
That's actually not a bad idea. No, I was just going to say, because you were talking about you can't handshake and can't high five anymore. I found the metal crowd is a very, very touchy-feely, huggy crowd. Yeah. And that's going to be weird, going back to shows and not being able to, embrace people like you want to. But, we'll survive. We'll get
the landlord of the place that I'm in, I met him for the first time last week. And it was one of those, like I went to go shake hand. He went to go fist bump me. So it was like this, Chinese handshake bow thing, like we both, he went to, give me the knuckles, and I went to go shake his hand, and it was the most awkward handshake ever, because I was just like, and normally you just put your hand out there. Yeah. He had a mask on. I didn't have mine on because I was just coming from my car right to the thing. And I felt bad because he's being safe and I was being an ass, So who knows, man? Hopefully neither one of us got sick.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, yeah. Yeah, usually at this point, I ask about either interesting gig or tour stories or like favorite venues you played. We're not going to talk about lost venues because there are way too many and that's way too depressing. And
favorite venues in town that I've played.
Yeah.
Or just in general.
We'll start with played and then just go with in general. Or they might be the same. You never know.
My favorites two spots would be the Mirage back in the day. Oh, that was on 26 and 26th in Minneapolis.
Yep. I was going to Music Tech before it became McNally. It was Music Tech.
Yep.
And that's where we had our rock band showcases. So I actually
Yep.
played there, I think 3 times with those, and then saw probably half a dozen shows there. Saw Pantera there. That was
one.
awesome.
Yep, I saw him there too. That was that venue and First Avenue. You know, I mean, First Avenue is like the pinnacle. I remember playing First Avenue the first time and kissing the stage. I got down on all fours and kissed the stage because you know, the guys in the Chromas are looking at me like, "What the fuck are you doing, dude?" And I'm like,
Do you
go
understand?
yeah, they didn't, because, you know, I'd grown up over there and I'd seen all the stars and read the names on the side of that building since I was tiny, you know, and I was like, man, you go outside and you look at them stars, dude, and you tell me what I'm doing. Like, I wanted, you know, I wanted to have that mojo jump in me somewhere, you know what I'm saying? Because, yeah, that First Avenue is like, you know, the spot, and it always sounded good on stage. Even, I mean, out there, outside, off the stage and on the stage, amazing sound. So those two places for sure. And Mirage, you know, we played like the extension of the big stage, and then we played the big stage. I mean, we did some stuff there, and I would say the Rock too. The Rock was fun to play over in Maplewood. That was a fun spot.
Oh yeah.
Doghouse now, I think it's called.
Oh, okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So it's, man, Triple Rock was awesome too. Small stage, intimate. That was a fun spot to play. But I would have to say, yeah, First Avenue would be the top of it all. I mean, I played the small stage in there, you know, 7th Street Entry. I played there a bunch. And then the main stage, like I said, my teens, my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, I was fucking, stoked.
Get there, man. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, out of all those, I've never played Main Room. I've played 7th Street Entry once, and that was on a new band night with Stupid Jerk. And that was weird just because we go in there to load in, there's no one else in there. So we're just like behind the bar, like pouring stuff, and because there's no one fucking there. We're like, this is cool. I think half the band was under 21 at that point, so you know, it's like whatever. And again, I really like the Mirage. There's actually a place, I don't know if it's still around.
Hey Ryan, are you editing this? Are you going to be editing this down at all? No.
I don't edit.
Okay.
Go on. I was in a metal cover band, and there's this place called the Tack, 7 miles outside of Amory, Wisconsin, in the middle of freaking nowhere. That when you walk in, I'm like, oh, this is the exact same setup as the Mirage. Like, it had the ramp up the side and the big floor and the big stage, like exact same setup as a Mirage. And I'm like, that's cool. Of course, we played there Friday, Saturday to a whopping total of maybe 25 people. But, you know, it was what it was. But I agree. I think we need another place in the city like the Mirage. Like, we need something that's a big room that isn't, you know, the Fine Line or First Ave. We need another, but anyway.
Yeah, that would be sweet. I just hope, I hope that they'll be able to save First Avenue and save most of these clubs, man, because, you know, I would love to be able to do some streaming shows somewhere. That would be cool if people could do that, if it ever came to that, you know, where you find a venue and you have a few bands. I know that Gorgatron just did something this week. I think it was Friday night.
Yeah.
In Fargo, they had a bunch of bands playing, and it was a free show. But, you know, it'd be cool if people kicked down you know, like donated if they could, or had some sort of like donation button to have for a streaming show. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
Maybe like a podcast thing. I don't know. I'd thrown around the idea with another buddy of mine just recently about trying to figure something out like that, and that would be fun to do, is to find a venue that could use some revenue, that we could, you know, give them something while we're trying to keep the scene alive, for fuck's sake. Because I mean, a lot of the venues serve food, so there's people that are, you know, I mean, like Spring Street's probably still going with their food and everything, but you know, Club Underground's kind of been one of those staples here for a while now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That I wish their sound was a little better. And I know that they were talking about possibly, doing some upgrades, but with everything going on, man, how the fuck are you going to afford to do any of that shit?
Exactly.
You can't,
Exactly.
you're kind of assed out when it comes to, upgrading something when you got no revenue coming in. So hopefully we can save some of these, because you see some of the, a lot of these great restaurants are dying off around here too because of this COVID stuff. And
oh, absolutely, absolutely.
First Avenue's got a subscription thing. It's like $25 a month. You can see all kinds of concerts, like exclusive concerts that had happened there. And if I don't know the links to that, but if you're listening to this interview, go look that up, because that's one thing that has helped First Avenue kind of keep things going a little bit, and their merch. If you can buy some of their merch, go there and buy that stuff too. I mean, buy all kinds of merch from everybody, because
yeah, absolutely.
nobody's doing any shows. If they've got merch, go to these bands that you love. I know that there's a handful of really good bands that are writing. I mean, Incinerate just dropped an album not too long ago. I know Semtex was talking about just going into the studio this weekend. They popped that up, saying they're going in.
Yeah.
Krog's been practicing to get their shit. I'm sure Glutton's been Glutton for Punishment's been doing their thing. I know Ghost Hook, I think, has got their full lineup back together again. I mean, there's going to be a lot of hungry people. Beastface, I had heard, is another band that's working on new material. When these guys come out of this cage, I think the music that's going to come out of this is going to be huge, because there's really nothing. I mean, there's nothing you can do but write right now, and hopefully, if you're taking advantage of the time that you got, if you're in a band, get on your hustle, man. Get your shit together, your t-shirt designs and everything, and that's what people should be doing and concentrating on right now, in my opinion, is like, get your merch together, man. Get, if it's coming out of your regular pocket, like that's you need to do that right now if you're serious about your band surviving through this bullshit, because man, like, we could create as ourselves, but keeping a name alive, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's harder.
The 2 years that I didn't do my podcast, I was still paying for my website. I was still paying for for my share site, like trying to keep things alive, and that's all you really can do. You can't live off of Facebook and YouTube, I mean, you really can, because you can promote your ass off. But it's not like it used to be, man. You can't wander around and hand out flyers no more. Well, at least right now you can't. And a lot of people stop doing it. They just do it all digitally now and make events and things like that. And it's not word of mouth like it used to be. That's the change that I can really tell you throughout the 30 years that I've been in this music scene, is that, I remember days where, we'd go to Kinko, or find your mom's fucking copy machine or whatever. I had friends that worked in the school office that would run off 10, 20 copies when they could at school and give them to us, and we would hand them to our friends at school and shit. We had connections like that. I had secretaries at my job that would slide them in with some of their paperwork and give me a stack of fucking flyers. We would make 4x4s on a one sheet, 8x10 piece of paper, and fucking handbills, and cut, and contact another band who was doing, a show that following week, and, split the price for sides, so we have our show on one side and another show on the other side. That was the way we did it back in the day. Nowadays, man, that was the thing, before COVID, I was doing during the morning and at night. I would find every show flyer digitally. I would make show flyers digitally over Photoshop. I would put these things together and like put them, calendar wise and month wise. And dude, they stopped like allowing me to share so much, and I had to cut back and like go to my, my band pages and like all this shit, because I was just doing it so much. And it was just because it, if you were going to be, I couldn't, physically go out and flyer as much as I could online. So I fell into that shit too, man. You push the button and hope everybody sees it. And, 3,000 people go, yeah, I'm coming. And like 4 people show up, you know what I mean? And they all sit in the back.
Yep. Yep. Oh, and then the other thing with that is, if we're going to go to this just digital advertising, can we just have, let's say we have 5 bands on the bill. Could we just have one band make the freaking invite
Yeah.
and everybody share it and not have 5 different invites for the same show? Because that just gets confusing.
Yeah, that should be the protocol of the guy putting the show on. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The guy who invited all the bands together, like that should be his job, is to say, okay, dude, your band, and your band, all get with me. We'll figure out this flyer. We'll figure out, you know what I mean? Here's another thing that I had said before is like every band should have a digital copy of they should have a folder on Facebook. They should have a folder on their website where people can go and just click their logo and save it and then have a copy of their logo. You should have a black and white copy, a white on black copy. You should have your fancy copy with the monster doing this in the background or whatever it is, right? You should have multiple copies of your logo. And if you're a death metal band, this is a key one, you fucking jerk-offs, is that your fancy logos, your stick logos that nobody can fucking read, you motherfuckers, okay? Just down right below there, right below your name, or right where, where your pointy things go down, right? Right in that little space that's negative, put what it actually says. So people know your fucking band name, you know what I mean? They all look the same, and I'm not getting down on people for doing it, but Mothwa, Justin just made a death metal logo for Mothwa, and what he did is right down on the bottom, it says Mothwa in little letters that you can read. That was something that I hated on the podcast, trying to promote people's shit, and I can't read their logo, and I would always go, well, you should spell your logo where I can read it, you know what I mean? Like, that is a key thing. Make a fucking folder with those things in it, man. Black and white, black on white, white on black, your fancy logo, and that in a small little JPEG that people could take and fucking make it,
and
300 pixels.
Yeah,
300 pixels. Do it that way. So it's nice, big size. They could size it down. Nothing gets, crunched up or blurred out when they explode it. It looks good still. Tips right here from the fat guy. Tips.
Well, and then going on that, even if a lot of these bands, even if you can read what it says, you can't pronounce it because they're made up words half the time.
Yeah.
Or words from like, ancient Greece or some shit. And I'm just like, I want to like you, but I can't say your fucking name.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was one of the things, man, too, when you're looking for names, you want to have something that someone can easily pronounce and remember, something catchy, piss leg. I don't know. It was something, I don't know, something easy that they can remember. Rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, exactly.
Piss leg from Kenosha, Wisconsin. Piss leg.
I'd go see them.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, so why don't we finish off with this? This is a new thing I've been trying. Dinner for 5. You can invite 5 people to dinner, dead or alive, doesn't matter. Who are they? Go.
Oh, man.
Probably should have prepped you on this one.
5 people for dinner, dead or alive. I could invite them. Well, damn, that's a tough one, dude. I would have to say my first one would probably be Jimi Hendrix for sure. Dead or alive, Jimi Hendrix, Prince, George Clinton. Damn. I don't know if I can answer this. It's not off the top of my head. It would probably be all musicians, Boy, Les Claypool. I love the bass. I love Les Claypool. Fucking Bootsy Collins. If we're talking bass players, Bootsy Collins. So what do you got here? Got Prince, George Clinton, Pete, Jimi Hendrix, Prince, George Clinton, Bootsy Collins, Les Claypool.
That's a fun table right there.
Yeah, I mean, but honestly, there's just so many people you could go for, man, dead or alive. I mean, do you go with friends? Do you go with family? Do you go with like amazing musicians? Like I could go either way. So
That is
I
true.
would,
That is true. I mean, most people go with, famous people,
celebrities. Yeah,
celebrities.
celebrities.
I
Oh,
mean,
see, wait. Can I switch? Can I switch them out now? Can
sure.
I? Okay, so I'd have to have Bob Marley somewhere in there.
Oh
I'd
yeah.
want to
Oh
sit down
yeah.
with Bob Marley.
Yeah.
Bob Marley would be amazing to sit down with. Just to
Yeah.
kind of pick his mind on how, because he was so simplistic in his approach to music,
Mhm.
and so like vibey. The vibe that he had, that he like put out there in the world was amazing. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
that was the thing, you know.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
would have to have him in there too.
Yeah, I think I like your table. You have got a good table. My two other favorites that people have said, somebody said Jim Morrison,
Yeah,
and you have to say, okay, which era of Jim Morrison?
true,
Like
true.
acid Jim Morrison or alcoholic Jim Morrison? Like you
Ooh,
don't want Jimbo at the table.
right in the middle, right where it's starting to transition, where he's just getting. I mean, because he was
Like,
always crazy.
well, uh, crazy. Yeah. I've read a lot about Jim Morrison.
Sure.
Very, very interesting, highly intelligent character, but
I
a
think he was
little
bored.
bit off.
I think he was bored with it. You know what I mean? He's like so smart, but yet bored with everybody else's bullshit. So he just
Probably.
tried to like mix it up just to do it. Like a I call them like people of chaos creators. You know what I mean? Like
Oh
someone
yeah,
who
yeah,
dwells in
yep,
the
yep.
chaos. Like they know what they're doing. They're specifically trying to shake shit up. You know what
Oh
I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Instigators,
yeah. Instigators.
the agitator, the fucking, I
And
was a
then
loss for words there.
somebody else said Mark Twain, which I thought would be very interesting.
Yeah, dude, Hunter S. Thompson. How
Oh,
would you know what I mean? Hunter
get
S.
get
Thompson.
get Jim Morrison and Hunter and Thompson at the same table, and just watch those two go.
Wow, he would probably be like his, he would be the, his sidekick. One of them would be the sidekick of each
Mhm.
other. There'd be something, either that or Hunter would just shoot him because he's just insane like
You're like,
that.
shut up. There you
Yeah,
go. Ah,
yeah, that would be a thing. Yeah. I don't know. There's just the list is huge. It's just something that I'm like, oh man, I could have literally sat there for an hour going, well, okay, well, I got Hendrix. I know I got Hendrix on there.
mhm.
And, Bob Marley's there. And then you start thinking, like you said, we start talking about, Mark Twain, and instantly Hunter S. Thompson pops in my head. Just to be
Mhm.
in the room with that dude would have been insane. Like, you're
Yeah,
just sitting
yeah.
there like, dude, Ginger Baker. Did you see the documentary about him?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That was a great documentary. That dude would have been insane to sit with. And then you ask, what era of Ginger Baker would you want to get involved in too?
True. True.
The early drugged out heroin fucking going across to Africa dude, or the old pissed off, like, the guy that has all the stories from the guy down here. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
that is a good point. That is also a good point. Hmm.
You know what would be killer to interview is a guy who had seen like a photographer or somebody who was involved in all of that 60s shit. You know what I mean? Like seeing Santana and Zeppelin and, you know what I mean? Deep
Mm-hmm.
Purple and just all of that stuff. But a guy who chronicled all of that, you know what I mean, would have been amazing to interview. I can't even think of a journalist guy who had been through all of that. But that would have been cool. That'd be a cool interview.
Yeah, and especially that era when there weren't restrictions on reporters and photographers, and they could just
Yeah.
go wherever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, shit.
Parliament Funkadelics, dude. Could you imagine someone chronicling that from the beginning to the end? If there was one guy chronicling all of that, because every single interview or documentary I've seen on them cats has been insane. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
Those guys
Oh
are
yeah.
just amazing. So much history and so many like outlets and things, you know, from that particular band, you know,
Oh,
that particular
absolutely.
group, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
so many other like styles that have popped up from that band and those groups. And yeah, so that would have been fun.
Hmm. Alrighty
Yeah.
then. Well,
Yes,
this has
sir.
been an absolute pleasure and blast, and thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely, dude. Again,
And
sorry about the long-winded explanations or stories, because
oh,
I get on tangent, so I
and I
just go.
knew that going in, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be fun because I don't have to talk at all. You just ask one question, you'll go for. You're like Kevin Smith
Yeah,
in that way.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
one
Probably.
question, 45 minutes later, he answers it,
Yeah,
and you know, we're all good to
yeah.
go.
I would say that. Thank you
All
for
right.
having me, bro. I appreciate it very much.
Oh, of course, man. Anytime.
And whenever you're ready, man, you want to come hang out and we'll do another podcast. That'd be cool too.
Yeah.
I'll come get you, dude. You know, because I know you don't travel, you know, too far outside the city. But I'll come get you, dude. We'll come do a podcast and hang out and shoot the shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do some Facebook Live. That's basically what I've been doing so far now. If anybody's interested, ritualmadnesspodcast.com. Hit me up there. Ritual Stitches for the tie-dye stuff and the embroidery stuff. That's pretty much it. You can contact me. I'm around. I've been here. I'll be around still. Even after you die, I'll be around.
The
thank you.
eternal Greg Chilton.
Yeah. Oh God, don't tell Rob Carlson you called me that, because I'll be getting a T-shirt that. Oh man, yeah, Rob. I hope you're not listening to this. I hate you.
All right. Cool. We'll see you
brother.
later.